Good morning. Today is a toasty Tuesday, August 20th. This is Wake Up with KERA News. Reminding you to hydrate and wear some sunscreen, I'm Andrew Garcia. Today's temperatures are expected to reach around 102 degrees, with areas to the south and west of DFW reaching temperatures as high as 110. Frisco ISD is still fighting a lawsuit from the state of Texas for electioneering. We're going to hear more about that story in just a moment, but first, let's get into today's news. The Democratic National Convention is underway in Chicago this week, and it'll see some Republican leaders rooting for Vice President Harris. Among them, Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois and former Trump supporter and commentator Rich Logis. They're speaking at the conference to sway Republican voters towards the Harris campaign. The Federal Trade Commission recently issued an administrative complaint against North Texas car dealerships for charging some customers hundreds more in hidden add-on fees. This was especially true for black and brown customers, as they were charged up to nearly $300 more on average for add-ons than white customers, according to the commission. The dealerships accused include David McDavid locations, Ford in Fort Worth, and Honda dealerships in Irving and Frisco. Earlier this year, Attorney General Ken Paxton accused 7 Texas school districts of electioneering. In lawsuits filed ahead of the March primaries, he claimed the districts were advocating against Republicans and voucher-like education savings accounts. Since then, most districts have settled, but Frisco ISD is still actively fighting Paxton's lawsuit against school officials. KERA's Becca Moore spoke with Tolawani Osibamawo, who tells us why Frisco is still standing.
Tolawani, can you take us back to February and explain how all this got started?
Yeah, so this is all related to Governor Greg Abbott's failed push for education savings accounts in Texas. These are a proposed state-funded program giving parents funding to use to send their children to private school or the tools to homeschool them. And critics fear that vouchers will take away school funding by diverting public funds away from public schools, which are struggling with funding. And so the districts that were sued were Denton, Frisco, Denison, Castleberry, Aledo, Huffman, and Hutto ISDs. Their situations were a bit different. Some school officials sent emails that directly advised staff against voting candidates who supported school vouchers for Frisco. It was Facebook posts, and at least 5 of these districts at this point have settled either because of some kind of agreement of potential wrongdoing or just a desire to not pursue litigation. Huffman ISD appears to be in settlement negotiation, but nothing's confirmed yet.
So Frisco's still fighting this lawsuit. Do we know the details of where that case stands?
So Frisco ISD made 3 Facebook posts on their government affairs page during the first days of early voting. They were saying that Frisco lacked about $90 million in funding because of no increase to the basic allotment, which is the state's per student funding for schools from the state legislature. And these posts also let people know that Texas has open primaries, and on top of that, redistricting has solidified which seats will be held by Republicans or Democrats, and some candidates who win in primaries are shoo-ins for taking the seat. So a Collin County judge issued a temporary injunction stopping the district from making these statements, but I spoke to Frisco ISD's lawyer, Lucas Henry. He says none of these posts fit the criteria of electioneering.
They don't mention any specific measure. They don't advocate for or against any specific candidate or group of candidates. And they don't encourage people to vote for the Republican Party or for Democrats in the upcoming elections.
So that's why Frisco is appealing this to the 5th Court of Appeals in Dallas, but also still fighting in Collin County Court. But Attorney General Ken Paxton says the district was indirectly telling people to vote against pro-voucher candidates. Henry and the district say those posts have already been changed or deleted, and this was only an issue ahead of the primary, so it's unlikely for the post to be replicated ahead of the November election, so there's no need for the state to pursue this permanent injunction.
And these are all civil cases, right?
Yes, they are. But in Denton, two principals, a husband and a wife, were actually indicted on criminal charges after people asked the Denton County District Attorney's Office to investigate. And they were accused of writing emails to staff listing candidates who were or were not in support of public schools. And this included their stance on school vouchers. And last week, the DA's office let the principals do pretrial diversion, which means that they basically have to follow the court's rules, and they can have these charges ultimately expunged from their records.
So what are the next steps in all of this?
Well, there's a permanent injunction hearing set for late September, and that's, of course, assuming that the parties don't come to an agreement before then.
That was KERA's Becca Moore and Tolawani Osibamawo in conversation. Scientists have noticed some bats are able to eat excessive sugar without suffering health problems. They found fruit bats' genes and organs were better primed for processing the sugar compared with insect-eating bats. They're hoping their studies will help them learn more about regulating blood sugar in humans, but they say that's still quite some time away. Texas defeated Florida yesterday 4-1 in the Little League World Series. The city of Boerne is representing Texas and the entire southwestern region in the Summer Classic that features the best Little League teams from around the world. The Boerne team will next play Nevada tomorrow in the U.S. semifinal. And back in the big leagues, the Texas Rangers play the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight. The Rangers won last night's home game 4-3. If you'd like to get a more in-depth look at Frida Kahlo as an artist and a person, check out Frida Beyond the Myth at the Dallas Museum of Art. For information, things to do, and a look at the coolest Frida Kahlo-themed spots in North Texas, head to artandseek.org. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up with KERA News. I'm your host, Andrew Garcia. This show was produced and edited by Shardae White and Rebecca Moore. For more news in your inbox, visit kera.org/wakeup. That's where you can subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA News newsletter and get more news and good morning vibes from our colleague Catherine Hobbs. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at KERATX. We'll see you tomorrow.